Tune into Pops. Let me tell you about the show called Pops, where we drop the knowledge on all the latest stuff.
Hey, it's Pops. Going to talk about True Detective. That's right. Season 4 dropped on physical media this week. So we can talk about that show a little bit, read the details on this so you guys can figure out if this is something for you. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a synopsis, spoilery type review and my thoughts on the series and what worked, what didn't work, and if it's a good fit for you. Love to hear from you guys and your feedback on the show. All right, so True Detective Night Country, which, by the way, let me give credit to season 4. I actually wish they had done that for all the seasons, said True Detective colon some sort of thing instead of 1, 2, 3. But it is an interesting seeing pretty much an all female main characters. I mean, there are a couple of characters with the guys, but they're really not. Everything follows these two: Liz Danvers, Jodie Foster, Evangeline Navarro, played by Kaylee Reese. They basically are investigating the disappearance of 8 scientists. And in addition, this is just kind of an interesting mystery with some supernatural stuff dealing with the indigenous Alaskans and some mystery that's surrounding that. Christopher Eccleston has a part, but it's pretty small. And by the way, it doesn't look like Christopher Eccleston. I'm like, oh, wait, that's him. So I thought John Hawkes had a pretty good role. It's kind of like this corrupt other sheriff, that kind of thing. So let me get into I thought John Hawkes was pretty good. He played like this other sheriff, and we'll get into him a little bit. So let me get through the press a little bit here. Warner Brothers Discovery Home Entertainment dropped True Detective Night Country on digital, Blu-ray, DVD. That actually dropped officially on July 9th. In case you missed it, you can run out and get your copy. It's available digitally as well. Amazon Prime has it, Apple TV, Google Play, Vudu, etc. Vudu is now Fandango Home, just so you guys know. It's about $30 as far as physical media goes. There's definitely a cast Q&A I thought was interesting to meet the True Detectives. New chapter, Issa Lopez. She's the showrunner, writer, director. Basically, this is her baby, and you can feel that different tone and different feel for certain things that she's going for in this show compared to some of the other seasons. There's a little thing that delves into the Alaskan Native culture there. It's called Exploring Indigenous Themes. Then they have like an inkblot thing, other special features and featurettes that kind of uh, ultimately culminate with about 364 minutes, according to their presser. So pretty cool. Synopsis is: when the long winter night falls in Innis, Alaska, the 8 men who operate the Tasol Law. I never could understand how to say that right during the show, even. It's the big research station. I don't know why they had such a fancy name for it. I guess maybe that's actually an actual place. I don't know. They vanish. They disappear. They solve the case. They're going to work on that. It's interesting darkness that's going to loom for different days, and they have sort of like day 1 of darkness, day 2, day 5, whatever. Kind of keeps going. And there's also haunted truths that kind of tie to a previous unsolved murder cold case, and that actually ties to some stress and animosity between the two of them, Navarro and Danvers. So if you've seen the show or not, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I had not watched any of this, so I was kind of watching it cold. I have to admit, in my spoilers, I'll get into more details here. There's some shots that in the trailer kind of gave away stuff that was later on. Like I would have known more coming had I watched this footage. So not a big fan of those kind of spoilers, guys, just so you guys know. I will say one of the strongest elements of the show is how it's shot. I felt very similar to that sort of like Fargo, abandoned in the Great White North, the middle of nowhere type of stuff. I didn't care for like random mystical and imagery and some of that kind of stuff they're going for. That I just didn't care for that. But here's Jodie Foster's Danvers character, and yeah, she's on the works here with Navarro there on the right, Kaylee Reese, who's done like physical martial arts MMA type stuff. She's not really a big into acting. This is like a pretty, I'll say, an early role for her. I don't know if it's I didn't really do any dive deeping on her resume and that kind of thing. I didn't really look at her whole resume or anything like that. So that's kind of the general gist of the show. General research, different True Detective. If you're familiar with True Detective at all, and if you're a completist and you're looking for the physical copy to get through it, again, high quality production. A lot of money is being well spent as far as making it look and feel interesting and dynamic and those kinds of things that you would expect from an HBO produced drama like this. So that's the general gist of it. We'll get into spoilers a little bit. So if you don't want those spoilers, then feel free to dip out, maybe come back. I don't want to ruin anything for you because obviously it is a mystery. And we'll get a little bit into the what actually happened and my thoughts on it, but we'll give you my general thoughts on the show right now. All right, let me start with Jodie Foster and Navarro. I think Jodie Foster is really, really just a shadow of her former self. Like this is a role that I don't think they quite knew exactly how to pull it off. They basically have her. She's almost like playing. They both are basically playing men, and that's kind of like my turnoff. I didn't quite understand why she was not more Clarice Starling. She's clever in certain scenes, and then the rest of her personality and all of that is pretty horrible. She's just an awful, deplorable person that you wouldn't like. She doesn't appear to have been in this town very long, but she slept with at least three major male figures in the town, including her boss, who she's still sleeping with. So she's basically like the town slut and an alcoholic and rude and mean and dismissive and just awful. And then Navarro, who, which by the way, she's just randomly banging some guy who there's a joke about, are you still banging so and so or are you back to women? So I don't know what they're trying to go for here. I don't understand the police dress code with her allowed to have the piercings. I'm assuming because she's going to play the culture/religion card. That's why they allow it. But I thought it was all very off and just never felt right. Never believed these two as actual police officers, just believed they were playing it in the show. That said, the show itself is well written. Their characters actually have some depth, and there are some twists that make you like and dislike them in different ways from the beginning and the end. And I'll get to more of the spoilers at the end. So that's where these two characters kind of drive most of the show. The mystery is interesting early on. There's like the missing scientist. They only find six frozen in the ice, completely naked, and all that. And they lay out all of the different photos. They do these different things that kind of allude to interesting mystery, interesting detective work. But at the same time, it's always hindered by just some things that are in the past, just untold mystery boxes. We always have more mystery boxes, but it's beautifully shot. This is very late in the season as well. These frozen ships just stuck out there. It's really pretty cool. But there's all sorts of family drama. This is the daughter. So the daughter's, oh, it's just, she's indigenous. I guess she's a stepmom. There's this sort of like back and forth about where the husband and the other son had gone. They're not there anymore. Danvers is a mess. Has this kid that she doesn't really relate to, who's struggling with her own indigenous background. She's a lesbian, so she's got some little tiny girl that she's all about. Eh, ugh, I didn't care for any of that too much. I think that Navarro is definitely more off putting because she has like this is her blue haired strange mentally ill sister. That storyline again, it's just the film is the show is riddled with just functional, I guess. Navarro, at least you understand why she's such a mess because now she's also dealing with not only the loss of her mother, but now the mental illness that is stricken with her sister. And again, more spoilers. The sister does ultimately commit suicide, which makes it. But again, they kind of brush it off quickly because they get right back into the investigation. They're trying to go for a lot of weight, but it doesn't always resonate with trying to keep up with the detective and the crime story at play.
She's not good with people she cares about.
All right, so this kid on the right, he's like the young police officer. Danvers treats him like crap. He's probably the best character in the entire show, but it's not. He's got a wife and a kid. He's neglecting all of that for his work. Then, of course, it ends with a horrible tragedy at the end of the season, which just basically just I found that to be one of the coolest and most shocking, crushing blows of the season. All right, so this is another one of those storylines that is sort of like weighting everything down. It ties to the main detective story, the crime story, but she's there at this protest. It gets a little bit violent and handsy. I really just thought all of this was like them trying to go for environmentalist stuff and climate change and those kinds of story arcs that it was like shoehorned in though, and I don't exactly uh, want to negate that there was not some meat on the bone because the scientists were doing things that tied to the mine. They were covering up data. There was obviously some sort of pollution and corruption. It ties to the after sort of like after the action scene, and that the mine gets shut down when it all leaks to the public, but they didn't. They just kept talking about dirty water, and you see like one scene here, maybe a random reference there, but I don't think you never really got a good feel for anything. There's really not enough sort of intensity. I didn't dislike it, but I didn't like it either. All right. So the show also has just random characters, right? So if you remember this lady from Andor, I did too. She basically just dances around in the snow at one point. And that's how they find the scientist. She randomly shows up at a couple points. She ends up helping Kaylee Reese's character actually survive when she's nearly going to fall through some ice. Didn't really matter otherwise. They just had to have random characters that, happened to be at the right place at the right time for something. That was it. Don't even know the character's name, to be perfectly honest. Okay, so this is one of those like horror supernatural, they see visions, they don't know what's going on type mystical things that they kept randomly doing, and I didn't like any of it. I can't stand a show that doesn't exactly know what they wanted to do. They didn't want to go full in with supernatural and weird and the visions and some sort of weird occult thing. They also wanted something grounded in a real killer and a real mystery that could be solved. So I don't even feel like they really resolved all the vision stuff. Like there's a polar bear that keeps showing up a couple times because when they're kind of in danger, you have moments where things just work themselves out. So
What the?
all right, so this is probably where like the production was just like really trying to shock you. So they found the six scientists frozen in this giant block of ice. They take it to a skating rink so they can frost
What
them,
the?
and it's just a giant
Get out of here.
block of
now.
human flesh and stuff, and it's really, really done well, really graphic and cool and interesting. I feel like just the production value of the show and the thread of the story is there. It almost feels like we could have taken Night Country and whittled it down to a really solid 2-hour movie and not had so much of these just random threads of things, and then maybe had a spin-off show from that about these people in the mine. Like I just feel like there was just too much. They were obviously inspired, and they talk about it a little bit in one of the featurettes, I think, where they're talking about being inspired by Alien and Thing. And you feel moments, a lot of that, but then you also feel like it just becomes across like a knockoff of Fargo. It becomes like a generic version of that. And you have all these dynamics and unlikable characters and people that are having relations that shouldn't be on screen and we don't want to see and just don't need to see. Some other takeaways is that the uh, adult content, the sex content, doesn't work at all. Like no one wants to see a bunch of 60-year-olds who are going to make out. We don't want to see 60-year-old Jodie Foster climb on top of 60-year-old heavy Christopher Eccleston to make out. We don't want to see Navarro wear her bra and just grind on some dude. And there's no romance or anything like this. It's just people banging, and it was just It was all just a bunch of crappy behavior and people just randomly getting drunk while they're on duty or they have something to do and be responsible for, and the corruption and stuff like that. The twists and turns work themselves out near the end of the season where you find out that there was this case that Navarro and Danvers were on, and they ended up coming to this case turned into a murder suicide, but it wasn't really a suicide. They got there and they executed this person, and then you think the whole time that it's Danvers, and in the final episode you realize that it's Navarro, which kind of makes Navarro even more unlikable and a monster, because in the end, when they get a hold of this scientist and they're basically just torturing him to get information, and then they kill him, like, it's just, she kind of just keeps getting away with being a monster. And then, of course, there's a twist and turns with the politics in the mine, and they send the other corrupt sheriff, the John Hawkes character, to kill Danvers. And the poor kid, that's his dad. He shows up and he has to kill him, and then they decide they're going to cover it all up, hide the body. So now this poor kid has all this crap hanging over him or whatever. I don't think we needed all of that. I don't know exactly the right amount, but we had too much stuff and nothing grounded towards a honest character that we want to cheer for and root for and want to succeed. We end up just having, I don't know, a bunch of animosity. Like, who do you believe and trust at this point? It's chaos. And then to make it worse, the true mystery, when it's resolved and when it's all answered and said and done, and it turns out that the scientists were actually murdered, it is a revenge killing for another cold case. And it's just a bunch of women from the indigenous tribe that murdered them all as a revenge. And then they're just kind of let go. Navarro and Dan, it's fine. Just letting you know it's okay. It's all good. So a whole lot of murder and chaos, and everybody just gets away with it. Like, there's no real justice at all in this show. Like, there's no accountability. I don't even know. I feel mostly bad, and I like the little Pete character, the little deputy character, but they like ruined him because they allowed him to be tainted by covering it all up. And actually was done well. They shot it well, because it was like you see him cleaning and having to take a shower. And then the other daughter had come home, so she knows he did it. I don't know. It's just, it didn't work to make me want to root for people. You got to have something grounded that could be interesting. This is like a whole bunch of cases that the feds find out about, and everyone could go to jail. Like, it's insane. Like, there's like layers upon layers of corruption and cover up and murder and chaos and sleeping with each other, and just like, holy, everyone who would not be in jail when it's all said and done, right? The daughter, well, she got into this big protest fight and whatever and broke some rules, and I don't think she'd go to jail very long, but at least she got arrested in the show at like almost being spiteful. But Pete has a wife and kid. I guess they're clean. The dude that Reese is banging actually is running some sort of like illegal drugs or alcohol or something. Moonshine, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, everyone's sketchy. Everyone. So I don't know about people in Alaska. Is this how you wanted to be portrayed? Because it's like Hollywood seems obsessed with trying to get Alaska, the indigenous people, and all that kind of like on screen. Like, we saw a little bit of this with like Echo, and there's been other things done with the Sheridan verse. And you feel like, are they being portrayed in a positive light? Are we being portrayed in situations that are good and bad, and we want to help them, support them? And I don't know. I don't think the show helped in that way at all. Not a little bit. So Isa Lopez had some ideas, just didn't really work for me in that regard. So, but the problem with the show is it's better than most shows, but it could have been great. And it just become okay, very good. It become okay to very good, because it's just bogged down